Most people in 2026 are still making mead the hard way, guessing on water, guessing on pH, guessing on nutrients, and then acting surprised when the finished glass tastes thin, harsh, or just off, even though they used great honey. The fix isn't some secret ingredient. It's a repeatable process that keeps flavor clean and predictable every time. If you leave early, you'll miss the exact targets and checkpoints that prevent the biggest great taste killers. Plastic Band-Aid off flavors from the wrong water, stress yeast that throws hot solvent notes, and small measurement mistakes that make two batches taste like they were made by two different people. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through a simple, modern 2026 approach you can repeat. Tools, numbers, yeast, nutrients, temperature, degassing, finishing, and near the end, I'll show you one quiet late game technique that can boost your aroma and stability. Gentle pressure fermentation with a spunding valve. Now here's the fastest way you can win before you buy anything new. Do not use chlorinated tap water. Chlorine can create chlorophenols that smell and taste like plastic or adhesive Band-Aids, and those off flavors don't fade. Use consistent clean water. Filtered or reverse osmosis is best, so that honey's character can actually show up in the finished mead. And if you want a quick preview before you commit to a full batch, do this simple test. Mix 1 cup of water with 1/3 cup of honey and measure the pH. That tiny check tells you what direction your must wants to go before you scale up, so that you're not guessing after you've already built the batch. Now let's set the basics so you can focus on flavor instead of fixing problems. You'll want a fermenter with a tight lid, plus a way to vent the CO2, either a classic airlock or a spunding valve. Have a pH meter, a thermometer, sanitized stirring gear, and something to degas like a wine whip with a drill. For gravity, use a hydrometer, a refractometer, or an Anton Par Easy Dense with SmartRef. Keep a digital scale, measuring spoons, and no rinse sanitizer like Star San, because consistency gets easier when your tools are simple and repeatable. Then bring good honey, clean water, a yeast that fits your style, and Fermaid O for nutrients. If you like practical, real-world mead-making tips that actually work in a home setup, tap the like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments what you struggle with most right now. pH, nutrients, temperature control, or getting a consistent finish, because that's what I build future videos around. Sanitation is non-negotiable. Anything that touches the must gets sanitized. Fermenter, lids, stoppers, airlocks, spoons, tubing, everything. One shortcut can ruin a batch, and I don't gamble. Clean gear gives you clean mead, and clean mead gives you predictable results. Now build a must. Mix your honey and water until the honey is fully dissolved. Then check the pH before you pitch yeast. I target pH around 3.8 to 4.0. That range helps keep bacteria in check while still staying friendly for yeast growth. When I scale up, I often use roughly a 3-to-1 ratio of alkaline water to honey. The water I use typically sits around pH 7.5 to 8.5, which helps keep the must land in that 3.8 to 4.0 window. For style and balance, I aim for an original gravity near 11-20. That target is great for semi-sweet mead that finishes around 13 to 14% alcohol, with real honey presence and a satisfying finish. And if your honey is thick or crystallized, don't boil it or pasteurize it. Keep it sealed and set the container in a warm water bath around 100 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. That loosens it so it pours and mixes easily without driving off delicate aromatics that make each varietal special. Once everything is fully dissolved, take your original gravity reading. A refractometer is fast and perfect at the start, but once alcohol appears, refractometer readings become unreliable without corrections. From that point on, trust the hydrometer for accurate gravity and stability checks. If you're using the Anton Par Easy Dense with SmartRef, you can track gravity with very small samples throughout the process and avoid wasting must. The key is to stick with one reliable method from mid-fermentation through finish so your readings stay consistent. Before you pitch your yeast, decide how you want to vent CO2. You can use the classic airlock, or you can use a spunding valve for pressure fermentation. Keep that second option in the back of your mind, because later I'll show you how it becomes a finesse tool for aroma and stability when you use it modestly and safely. Yeast choice matters. Read the spec sheet and respect the temperature range and alcohol tolerance. QA23, which is a favorite of mine, thrives between about 59 to 64 degrees Fahrenheit and tolerates roughly about 14.5% alcohol, which pairs well with a 11-20 starting gravity. For fruit-forward meads, 71B is a strong choice. And for traditional meads with rounder mouthfeel, D47 can be lovely. Pick a strain that matches your goal and keep it in its comfort zone to avoid off notes. Nutrition is where many batches stumble, so I keep it simple and effective. Fermaid O only, no DAP. DAP or DAP can be harsh, and it isn't necessary if you feed your yeast properly. I follow the TOSNA style, 4-stage staggered schedule. I add nutrients at about 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, and about a 1/3 sugar break. For an OG of about 1120, that 1/3 break is around 1080. For a typical semi-sweet target like this, I'm usually right around 4.2 grams of Fermaid O per gallon total. Split it into 4 equal doses of about 1.05 per gallon each time. That keeps the yeast active and happy without overwhelming them. Now, temperature control is just as important. I keep the internal fermentation temperature between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit and try to stay on the lower end. Staying below 66 degrees Fahrenheit helps keep fermentation clean and avoids fusel alcohols that can taste hot or solvent-like. If it gets too cold, you risk slowing or even stalling the fermentation. Find that steady mid-60s lane and hold it. During the first 3 to 5 days, I degass twice daily. A sanitized wine whip attached to my drill gently drives off CO2, which reduces yeast stress and helps them work smoothly. After day 5, I stop. Past that point, the risk of oxidation is higher than the benefit of future degassing. Keep an eye on pH during fermentation. I like to stay above 3.8 so the yeast aren't fighting a too acidic environment. To decide when you're done, look for gravity that holds steady for at least 2 weeks and sweetness that matches your plan. For my semi-sweet target, I usually land around 10-20 final gravity. That balance brings gentle alcohol warmth with true honey character together without getting cloying. Once fermentation wraps up, I cold crash for clarity and clean flavor. I drop the temperature under 42 degrees Fahrenheit, usually 33 degrees Fahrenheit, and I hold it there for 2 to 3 weeks. Yeast, proteins, and fine particles settle hard, and what you rack off is cleaner, brighter, and easier to finish. Now, clarity is not my main goal here. Taste is, but presentation does matter. And haze make a finished mead feel unfinished. Cloudiness usually comes from a few repeatable suspects. Yeast can hang in suspension, especially if the mead was moved, carried, or bumped, creating a soft haze that can linger. If you use fruit, berries, or stone fruit, pectin can create a stubborn haze because it holds tiny particles in place and fights gravity. Proteins can come in the form of honey, especially raw, unfiltered, or highly floral honeys, and also from spices, botanicals, or other additions. Minerals from unfiltered tap water or mineral-heavy well water can interact with proteins and yeast and leave a fine persistent haze that doesn't drop easily. Your simplest tool is time. Given enough quiet aging, cool and stable, gravity slowly wins, and a lot of haze clears on its own. If you want to speed that up, cold crashing helps fast forward settling. Chilling close to refrigerator temperatures, roughly 32 to 40 degrees temperature for several days, up to a couple of weeks, makes particles clump and drop faster. And if you've tried time and cold and it still won't clear, finding agents can help. Bentonite is a classic for mead and works extremely well on proteins and yeast, binding and dragging haze out into a compact sediment layer. For tougher cases, gelatin or sparkaloid can be useful, especially when you've got mixed haze sources. And if you want commercial style brilliance, filtration is an option. Filter cartridges in the 1 to 3 micron range can polish a stable finished mead after cold crashing and fining. If you use fruit often, there's one tool that specifically targets the pectin problem. It's Pectinase. It breaks down pectin cell walls, and it works best when added before fermentation starts. You can sometimes use it after the fact, but it's at its absolute best up front, before the yeast gets going. Now, taste and balance like a chef, because this is where technically correct turns into I want another glass. If the mead feels flat, a small bump of honey, a touch of acid, or a bit of tannin can snap the profile into focus. Oak cubes or a fruit addition can add complexity, but only after primary fermentation is fully complete, so you don't trigger another round of fermentation you didn't plan for. Finding agents are rarely needed if you cold crash well, but if you decide to backsweeten or add fruit to stabilize the fermentation in a bottle, use potassium sorbate or potassium metabisulfite together when adding sugar back in. Stabilize first, then adjust sweetness to taste. That simple order prevents bottle gushers and protects your hard work. A quick note on racking to secondary. I don't rack unless I'm adding oak or fruit. If fermentation is clean and you cold crash well, you can often skip the extra transfer and reduce oxygen exposure. Simpler is safer. Now for that late game technique I teased. Fermenting under gentle pressure with a spunding valve. With a pressure-capable fermenter and a spunding valve, you set a modest target PSI so CO2 can vent slowly while a little stays in solution. This helps preserve delicate honey aromatics, reduces oxygen pickup, and can even give you a more soft natural carbonation right out of the fermenter. No priming sugar, no fuss. Used well, pressure fermentation is an inexpensive tool that can tighten aroma, smooth edges, and improve stability. Keep the pressure modest. Don't exceed your vessel's rating. I generally go for the first 5 days around 1 psi, and then I start bringing it up to 1.5, 2, till I get to a 5 by the end of fermentation. Don't exceed your vessel's rating and maintain the same good habits with nutrients, temperature, and sanitation. Treat pressure like a finishing brush, not a crutch, and you'll notice the lift in aroma and the way the finish feels. If you bottle directly from a pressure-capable fermenter, that gentle sparkle can carry over and make the honey pop in a really pleasing way. If you prefer still mead, vent the pressure before packing the bottle as usual. Your cold crash and careful transfers will keep it clear and calm either way. If you want the whole process in a quick reference, I put my step-by-step into a free ebook called Mead-Making at Home Easily. The link is below in the description as well as in the pinned comment. It's the exact checklist I use so I can repeat the results across batches without reinventing my process. If you have a question about your water, pH, or a confusing reading, drop it in the comments and I'll help you sort it out. Tell me your yeast, your starting gravity, and whether you're using filtered or RO water, and we'll troubleshoot it cleanly. Then head to the mead making playlist next, because that's where we keep building skill and advanced techniques, different mead styles, and how to level up your flavor without making your process overwhelming. You can see the playlist as well as other videos right over here. Happy mead making.